Good evening and thanks for joining us. We begin with the baby steps being taken to reopen parts of the Canadian economy. After weeks of lockdown, Canadians are looking for some semblance of normal life. This is how Canada's public health officer put it.
These past weeks have made the words of millions of kids ring true as they shout from the back seat, "Are we there yet?" Though I'm sorry to say, no, not quite yet.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said again today things will not get back to even close to life as we knew it until there is a vaccine or an effective treatment. And he played down the idea that people who have had COVID-19 might get immunity passports.
There is no conclusive evidence right now that having contracted COVID-19 once protects you from contracting it again a few months later. This is too new a virus. Scientists are working very hard on exactly that, whether the presence of antibodies in someone will protect them from catching COVID-19 again. But we don't know that yet.
Ontario's premier laid out plans today to slowly, methodically begin to reopen some businesses and public spaces. It will happen in 3 stages in Ontario. Each will last 2 to 4 weeks and will be closely monitored. The first will involve opening some workplaces and allowing some small gatherings, but there is no time frame.
The framework is about how we're reopening, not when we're reopening. No one wants the economy to open up more than I do, but we can't take anything for granted. We can't take unnecessary risks.
Eric Sorensen explains Ontario's framework for the weeks and months ahead.
Ontario says it'll be ready to open the economy more widely the moment it's safe. Stage 1 will permit more businesses to have curbside pickup and delivery. Outdoor spaces like parks will ease restrictions, and hospitals will be able to offer elective yet serious surgeries that have been put off. If all goes well, after 2 to 4 weeks, bigger workplaces could open, with larger public gatherings allowed. But huge gatherings like concerts and major sports events will remain out for now. And there is no timetable yet.
Progress doesn't mean we can quit now. And that's why I won't set hard dates until we're ready.
Ontario will provide guidelines for workplaces to be ready to open.
This guidance will come as soon as it's available so that employers can start to make the plans that they need to make.
The reason for some confidence is the number of cases in Ontario has leveled off during April, an average of 460 new cases each day, an increase but not the doubling of cases we saw every few days in March. What Ontario wants next is to see the number of cases coming down in the weeks ahead so it's safe to restart the economy.
The reason we're here where we're at this point of the flattening of the curve is because of each and every one of you. We'll get there, and we'll be rolling that out as soon as we see the consistency of the numbers dropping.
It's really going to be a really tricky balancing act, trying to open up enough to get things going, but not too much that we end up with a second wave of cases.
COVID-19 case numbers appear to be coming down just a bit in Ontario, but any return to normal has to protect the most vulnerable.
Right now, our biggest challenge is long-term care, and it may take us a couple weeks to start to see a decrease in those cases as well.
One other question mark for Ontario is schools. There are no plans to send any kids back to class before the end of May, leaving a small window in June still as a possibility. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
Quebec is also making plans, and it is setting some target dates for reopening, even though it has the most cases and the most deaths from COVID-19 in Canada. Primary schools and daycares in Quebec will begin to reopen on May 11th, though attendance will not be mandatory, and high schools will remain closed until September. Mike Armstrong explains Quebec's strategy to phase that province back to a new normal.
With Quebec schools already shut down for 6 weeks and counting, many have argued to just leave them that way and open up in the fall. The problem with that thinking, the Premier says, is come September, we may be no further ahead.
There's no proof that we'll have a vaccine in 6 months. So we'll be in the same situation as today.
The plan is to have students return to classes in steps. For now, it'll only be daycares and elementary schools. For most of the province, classes will reopen May 11th. For the Montreal region, where most of the COVID-19 cases are, it'll be May 19th. The goal is to keep classes to about 15 students and to ask them to keep 2 meters of distance between each other. The situation will be monitored closely. If there are outbreaks, students and staff would be tested.
Based on the situation and the specific story, that class could be closed for 14 days.
Staying at home means saving lives.
Now, the number of cases of COVID-19 is still growing in Quebec. The government says it understands some parents will be nervous sending kids back to school when it feels like most of society is still shut down. Well, attendance will be optional. Cecily Ranger had hoped not to send her daughter back to school until the fall.
I'm not worried so much about her health. I'm more worried that if the kids are carriers, that they're going to get other people.
Quebec's Order of Pediatricians has pushed the province to reopen schools. It says children with developmental delays or psychological issues need contact with teachers. Also, according to experts, children are less likely than adults to contract COVID-19, and if they do, much less likely to have problems.
If we don't do it now, we cannot keep the kids inside forever.
Now, opening schools comes as Quebec continues to struggle with outbreaks in seniors' residences. 400 soldiers hit the ground this coming Wednesday to help with that crisis. But the province says the healthcare system overall is doing well and could cope if there's a problem. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
The new series that goes inside the COVID-19 pandemic, from the front lines to the everyday heroes helping us cope with the unprecedented change. Coronavirus, the new reality. A Global News special, Sundays at 7 on Global.